We all know people who have achieved a lot and they have high status and, maybe high money, but they don't feel free. And if you are with those people, whether you know them well to start or whether you just spend time with them, they're not successful. And other people think they are, but if you get into their brain, there is regret, there is sadness, there's a lack of fulfillment.
Welcome to the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I'm dedicated to helping you take control of your life. Together, we'll explore practical tips, expert advice, and inspiring stories to help you overcome obstacles and achieve your goals. Making small changes is possible and can lead to big results. Are you ready? Let's go do this. Well, Small Steps, Big Wins family, I am extremely excited to welcome David Kolbe to the show today. His mission is to transform how the world understands human performance. David comes from a lineage of psychometric pioneers, and he helped develop the original algorithm for the Kolbe A Index. He's also CEO of the Kolbe Corporation, a company committed to helping people achieve what they care about the most. He co-authored a book titled Do More Naturally, which we're going to dive into, and wherever else our conversation takes us. So, David, welcome.
Great to be here, Sue. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. I'd love to start with what are some of your life's highlights that brought you to where you are today? And I would really appreciate it if you talked about the birth of the Kolbe A Index as well.
Sure. So one of the things that I love about being on your podcast is the whole concept of small steps, because so often we hear people's stories and there are these big, like, road to Damascus moments, this dramatic conversion, of a turning point in one's life where everything changed. That really wasn't my life. It was much more small incremental steps. I mean, as a kid, I always wanted to be a lawyer. So sure, I went to law school. That's one of the steps. And that's a big step, but it wasn't this huge change. So, I mean, going back a little bit, went to college, was very interested in policy and politics. So I worked on Capitol Hill for a while, but kind of knew I wanted to go to law school. So I went to law school, became a lawyer. One of the small steps for me was a conversation that I had with one of the senior partners in the law firm where I worked. And he was basically saying, being a lawyer, I kind of like it, but I also kind of feel stuck and, but I make a lot of money and, I don't know how I would change things at this point in my life. And I remember thinking, wait, so this is somebody who's really good at what he does, who's, reached a great place in his career, very well respected, and he's not loving it. And it made me think, is this what I want to do for the next 20, 30, 40, however many years? And, again, wasn't a dramatic moment like, oh, I'm going to quit my job and go do something else right away. But it did kind of it planted a seed. Like, is this, what's the long term? And is the long term of this what I want my life to look like? So that kind of opened the door for me to be recruited. So my mom started the business that I run now, and she recruited me away from the law firm to do legal work for the company. We at the time had a bunch of intellectual property stuff that needed to be done. And so it was doing the intellectual property side, but I also had a business degree. So it was, running a business. This was the late 90s. The internet was coming online, and we had started an e-commerce side of the business. So that was very exciting and appealing. Like, ooh, the internet in the 90s, it was kind of a hot place to be. So it was kind of easy for her to recruit me. So I guess I'll stop there for now. That's kind of what got me to the current company where I work anyway.
Okay. All right. Well, researching is a fascinating topic as well. Like, some people just want to know more and ask more questions, right? I know your mom was a researcher. Did you also have that researching curiosity? And did that start pulling you into doing more to develop the Kolbe A test?
Interestingly, so my mom created the Kolbe A Index. She was not really by nature a researcher. She was more of a theorist. She came up with concepts and theories and then would test them out. The research that she did was because it had to be done. It's like, okay, well, I've got these ideas and these thoughts and I've kind of tested them out, but if I want to make sure that they are significant, that there's, meaning and truth and substance behind them, then we better do the research to figure that out. So she would basically have other people do it. I'm actually more of a natural researcher in the, I won't go too deep in Kolbe lingo yet, but I'm what we call an initiating fact finder. So my natural way of approaching problem solving is to ask questions, get information, do research, kind of dig deep. The Kolbe A Index got developed when I was pretty young. My mom was developing it when I was in like middle school, high
Oh,
school
okay.
era.
Hmm.
So, I was around the conceptual pieces. I didn't have a big part in. My mom really did all of that. What I helped with was I helped develop the algorithm that scores the index. So my mom had these concepts and ideas and figured out a bunch of stuff. And we'll probably need to get into that so the
Oh, we
people
will.
watching and listening aren't like, what the heck are they talking about? But it started as something that she kind of knew. She kind of intuitively knew some stuff about people. And then she did some research to figure out, oh, I think it's this thing called conation that has the concept's been around for thousands of years. Literally, Plato talked about it, this doing part of the mind. And she, because just of who she got the sense of kind of what the contours of this part of the human mind are and the patterns and the consistencies and similarities that people have. But it was tough to get from that to what's a way to ask people questions, get a result, and deliver it to them quickly. And you need basically an algorithm to do that. I mean, now
Right.
we would probably almost call it artificial intelligence, but that's just a it's a way to mysticize something that's more straightforward than that. It's, hey, let's get information from people, let's analyze it, and let's tell them what we know, but from what we've learned about what they're telling us. But the scoring algorithm was fairly complicated. So that's really what I helped with the most in
Uh-huh.
the development of the index.
Oh, wow. 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 Yeah. Because the index itself, I did take the test, which, and I have my results and I have my partner's results as well. So we'll touch on that later, but I want to back up a minute because you mentioned the word conation.
Yep.
And in the book, you talk about there are three different parts of the mind. There's the thinking part called the cognitive, which most of us are familiar with,
Yep.
we've got that cognitive, that thinking part. Then we've got the feeling part. A new word for me was affective. I didn't realize that that was associated with the feeling part of the brain. Usually I don't know, I would have said emotion, but in the book, it's
Well,
affective.
yeah.
Yeah.
Emotion and emotional, that works
Yeah.
also, but it's generally called the affective, not
a-
effective, but affective part of the
Affective.
mind.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So that's your feeling part. So we're pretty much all familiar with that, but I was fascinated by this third part. I didn't know that existed.
Yeah.
So that's the conative part. And that's the part that has to do with taking action. And so that's what the Kolbe index, I keep saying test, Kolbe index unpacks is how we take action on things. And I think that just taking the test, doing my own analysis on the test using the book, which was really cool, by the way, because the book went along with the test and the book was more in depth with the results that came from the test. So I just want to, that was also interesting as well. Let's talk about your book then.
Sure.
Your
Well, let me
book,
jump in on a couple of things first. So
yeah, I'm going to
you
pause
kind of
there because I hit a bunch of things there.
you did.
Go ahead.
You kind of corrected yourself about test versus index. Call it what you want to call it.
Okay.
Sure, it's a test. Let me tell you why we call it an index though. And
Sure.
the reason I wanted to jump in is because I don't want people to get a thought stuck in their mind that then is harder to change.
Yeah.
We don't call it a test, even though that's not incorrect, because when people hear test, it's a little scary. They think there's a right and wrong. There are better and worse results to a test. Like, you take a test in school, you can get an A and you can get an F, and you don't want to get an F. An intelligence test, an IQ test, that's in the cognitive realm. Higher is better. That's just how we're taught to think of it. And it probably is true. There's more capacity cognitively. You're smarter. The conative part of the mind doesn't work like that. It's not a better or worse. It's not, oh, what's your result? And we'll see if you measure up well to somebody else. That's not what it is. It's all about finding out who you are in this realm, what we call this action mode of the conative part of your mind, which doesn't change. It's instinctive. We don't know exactly how you get it. I would love to figure that out. We don't. it kind of doesn't look like it's genetic, and yet it doesn't change over time from what we've seen in our research. So it is you. So when you learn what it is, the result is perfect because it describes you, and you want to, that's what we should all develop, our instinctive strengths, our inherent strengths to their fullest ability before worrying about, tell me those areas where I'm bad or I'm weak, and like I'll improve those. Look, there's a place for that, and we can go more in depth, but
Mhm.
the key is to understand first, develop what you've got and use it and stick with it.
Mhm.
Living in the real world, of course, where we aren't totally free to do exactly what we want, how we want to do it all the time, but that's the sweet spot for people. And that's a little bit of the segue. That's what the book
Mhm.
is about understanding and finding what's that sweet spot for you. So and we struggled with the title. So I wrote the book with Amy Bruschi, who's my sister, and I'm the CEO. She's the president of our company that my mom started. But we struggled a little bit with the title, and I think I struggled with it more than she did, because the first part, do more, the second part's more naturally, but do more. Sure, it's great, but so many people feel like, look, I'm grinding hard enough already. Please don't put more on my plate. I don't want to have to do more. I want to be able to do less. But what the book is about is understanding we want people to do more, but in a way that is sustainable. That's the more naturally part. When you figure out, I'm doing it in a way that works for me, you can achieve the same thing using less energy, and therefore you've got extra energy left over that you can put into doing more stuff and achieving bigger things. And just if you want to pile it on until you're exhausted, go for it. But you could also do something else. You could, instead of spending all that energy at work, you have more energy at home for your partner, your kids. You can use that energy volunteering. I'm not telling you where to use it. I'm just trying to help people figure out it doesn't have to be as big of a grind as most of us make it for ourselves.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I read that in the book too. Just that protecting your energy, and if you lean into the things that you do more naturally, then you're actually naturally going to protect your energy. Would you say it's something like, for example, I can get lost in, or anybody can get lost in something they really enjoy doing?
Hmm.
Time can pass and you don't even feel like you expended any energy on it. It
Right.
doesn't really matter what it is.
Yep.
Would you say that would be an example of something that somebody is using their conative part of their, like they're leaning into
Yeah.
the action part, and that's where, you're kind of protecting your energy. You can do it all day long, but
So
you
there,
still feel great.
yeah, and there are two components to what you described. You said
Mhm.
doing something you love, and that's more the affect, the emotional
Oh, okay.
side. So, and that's really important. And it needs to, like, all these things need to come together to truly get in. That's maybe a flow state, kind of what you're describing, where it's, oh my
Oh,
gosh,
yeah.
I'm just doing stuff, and I lose track of time. Sometimes it's a long time seemed to take a little bit of time, like that's getting lost. Sometimes it's a little bit of time seemed to take a long time, because I could, like, athletes talk about this, where that quick moment that everybody else sees, time slows down for them so they can perform at super high levels because they feel like it didn't go by super fast. But anyway, that state that you're talking about, you love what you're doing, so you're motivated, you have an emotional connection to it. But then the other part that you described was you're taking action about that thing in a way that is natural for you. So I mentioned before, with me, one of the things that I lead with is getting information and sharing information. So it's a little bit of both. When I have the opportunity to research stuff, to go deeper, I, I love that. And yes, I can. Sometimes it's wasting time. Full disclosure, I have a phone, and I, use it
Yeah.
to spend an hour, not intentionally, but it's like, did I really need to read that much about, some obscure part of history or some chemical
You're like me.
process?
Well, you're like me. I mean, I might as well just think like, so the Kolbe Index is a score. So we might as well pause right here so people
Okay.
know what we're talking about, because you mentioned that you're a fact finder. You go into like facts. So am I. So there's a Kolbe score. It's 4 numbers, and it's just, like you said, it's an index. it's just on a continuum. That's how I looked at it, because my partner was asking me, he's like, I don't want to take another test. I'm like, it's not a test. It basically registers where you are. And the book also unpacks all that as well. But there are 4 instinct-based action modes.
Yep.
And we'll have fact finder, follow through, quick start, and implementer. Those are the 4. And the way your book lays it out and the way the test lays it out is that fact finder is first. That's the first number. Follow through is the second. Quick start is the third, and implementer is the 4th number. So we could talk about each. So I'll let you steer how you want the conversation to go with that. My score was 8633. Yours is 8273. So we're similar. We're very similar, except where it comes to quick starting.
And follow through. We're a bit different there also.
Follow through. Yeah, that's true.
You're a 6 and I'm a 2.
Are you 2? Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay. I was looking at the wrong number. Oh, no, you know what it is? Full disclosure, I'm mildly dyslexic. And guess what? I just pulled it right there.
Okay.
I see what I did right now. Okay. All right. So you mentioned Fact Finder, that you sometimes go down more rabbit holes. I concur. And I'm also an 8 in Fact Finder. I can just keep going down rabbit holes. And that's why I enjoy podcasting so much, because it plays into my curiosity. I have questions that I usually do ahead of time, but a lot of times we rarely ever get to all of the questions in a podcast, because my guest will say something and we'll go in another direction. And it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. So the results of the index, as I said, I think the most important part is it's all positive. There's no better or worse. So yes, we're talking numbers already, and I'll describe those, but a 10 isn't better than a 1. A 1 isn't better than a 10. It just describes where you are. Think of each of these as a continuum. So we'll do the rest of Fact Finder. So I've mentioned it's about how we gather and share information. You and I are toward one end of the spectrum where it's all about getting more detail, more information, sharing more. So you ask me questions, I'll give you lots of detailed answers. The key is detailed answers. Other people will give an answer, but they'll do it in a different way. So the other end of that Fact Finder spectrum is somebody who really looks at the big picture rather than the details. They want the executive summary. They will boil it down to not 17 different things to know about a topic, but here are the 3 most interesting things, or maybe 1. So again, it's not a better or worse. I will tell you that initiating fact finders make the mistake often. And this is me, I think, in younger versions of myself, I think I've learned. But a lot of times, because we're so detail and information oriented, we think, well, we're pretty darn smart because we have all these facts and figures at our fingertips. No. That's not about intelligence. So Kolbe results do not correlate to intelligence. So that the other end of that spectrum, where people look at just a couple data points, or at least gather and share less information, they can be just as smart. I mean, again, doesn't correlate. That mid-range, frankly, most of the people in the world fall kind of in the middle in all of these 4 action modes. And there it's really bridging the gap between those 2 extremes. So most people aren't more and more information and detail and tell you all the stuff. They also aren't totally the other end of the spectrum. They do fall. Think of it as kind of like, that bell curve. So that's Fact Finder. Follow through is how we deal with systems, structure, organization. So those, what we call initiating follow throughs, 7, 8, 9, or 10, think of it that end of the spectrum. They create systems and structure. Where there is chaos, they will bring order. The other end of the spectrum is maybe the other way around. Where there is order, they will create chaos. And I don't mean that in a negative way. What I mean is, so to describe it as a strength, the other end of the spectrum is very open-ended, adaptable. They are naturally going to juggle lots of things going on, and they don't need to bring everything to closure. They can switch gears quickly and unexpectedly. So that's kind of the 2 ends of that spectrum. Really systematic, structured, organized, really open-ended, adaptable, taking shortcuts.
Okay. So for follow through, then you're a 2.
Right.
Do you see yourself in that? Like you're just...
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I'm a 6. And it's funny, when you were describing both ends of follow through, I could see just a little of myself in each of them, because I like to bring order to chaos. I mean, that is just something I look through. I will put systems in place, but sometimes they're not like, I'll go back and I'll change them or I'll
Yeah.
tweak them, but I have to complete something. That is with me. Open-endedness is not necessarily, I don't like that.
Yeah, so I love the word when you saying tweak it. So for somebody with your results, so you're a 6, so just whether it's 4, 5, or 6, just think that kind of middle of the continuum. You don't need to create a new system all the time, but like you said, you tweak it. It's like, hey,
Mhm.
if one's there, I'll tweak it a little bit, make it work for this situation, live within an existing system. That's the kind of thing you would do. Um, but you're reminding me of a story. So my wife and I are very different. She's a 7 in follow through. I'm a 2. So she is a systematic, structured, organized person. She needs to finish things. And by the way, what Kolbe results describe really is a need. It's not just a want. And
Mm.
frankly, there are times when these things can conflict. You might want something like there are a lot of times I want systems and structure. I'm just not the person to create them. And
Mm.
by the way, I want them to make some things easy, but I also want the freedom to not live within them when it doesn't
What
suit
you
me.
want. Yeah.
So yeah, I can be a pain in the neck that way. But back to the story with my wife, because she needs to finish things. And this is a story from earlier in our relationship. Partly I know this because she would read hard copy books. Now she's on a Kindle for everything, but and there'd be a book on her nightstand for a long time, and she's a fast reader. And I asked her, I remember one time, well, Pam, why is that book still on your nightstand? What's going on? She's like, oh, I don't really like it that much. I'm like, okay, this is not school. There's no book report due on this book. Just stop reading it. She doesn't do that. She needs to finish that book, even if she doesn't like it and it's just for herself. Now she'll start skimming it and everything, but that's one of the differences. I'll start a bunch of books and I may not finish 2/3 of them, partly because I'll get halfway through and like, yeah, I got it. I know what they're saying. If it's a novel, you want to get to the end, but I read a
I
lot of
read
nonfiction.
I read the end first. If
Yeah,
it's a
well,
novel and I'm halfway through, I'm like, I'm just so done at this point. I'll just read the last chapter to find out what happens. I'm just laughing because I find myself in between both you and her. I will start a book, and if it's not serving me, I can put it down and say, okay, this isn't it. Or I'll start a book and I'll be like, wow, I'm going to finish this book. A
yeah,
lot of my guests are authors and I read their books. But sometimes I can't finish the book because I just don't get it done in time, but I'll skim it, I'll get to the end, and we can still have an awesome conversation.
right,
So and
right.
I'm okay that I didn't finish it. But it's
Yep,
funny that I'm in the middle. We're gonna get back to the relationship stuff too and these numbers. I want to go through the other two parts as well.
sure. Yeah, so quick start is how we deal with risk and the unknown, innovating in the sense of like taking those chances and experimenting. So on the initiating side of the spectrum, so again, 7, 8, 9, 10, toward that end, those people experiment, they take chances, they leap before they look. They're a just go for it kind of person. And they need to do that. Again, this is kind of instinctive. This is part of who they are. I think one of the keys is the experimentation. It's the just trying things out. And by the way, it's hard to pin people down all the time. I mean, sometimes, sure, there are behaviors that are so obvious, but there are also layers. Like I come across lots of people in the business world where people think, oh, yeah, that person's an initiating quick start because look at all those crazy things they do. But what they don't see, perhaps, like let's take the fact finder, they might have done 6 months of research. They just were
Oh yeah.
dark. They weren't telling everybody, oh, I'm thinking of doing a career change. Maybe they apprenticed somewhere. They did a ton of research before they made that decision. But to the outside world, it looks like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden they did. It's not all of a sudden. Um, so anyway, back to quick start. That's the one side of that spectrum. The other end of that spectrum is somebody who stabilizes, somebody who figures out what's been working and sticks with it. So we talked about chaos, like bringing order out of chaos with follow through. With quick start, it's almost more preventing chaos from happening in the first place. Those
Yep.
people who
I
are
can
ones,
see that.
twos, and threes and quick starts, like, why are we going to experiment? Like, this is going really
Yeah.
well. We don't need to mess things up. Let's stick with it. And
I'm laughing because I'm a 3. Like you
yeah, so
just
that's,
described me, bringing the order to chaos and then keeping it there.
yep.
Keeping the order there. Yeah. I'm just laughing because it's just, I can't get over how accurate the test was for myself when I started going through that. And even when I took it the first time, I'm like, am I taking this correctly? Yeah, okay, I guess. But
Yeah.
yeah.
So the last one of the four, Implementer, I kind of wish we could go back and change the name, but we've had the name for a long, long time now. It's
Mm,
not how you implement as in carry things out. That's almost more the follow through part. The implementer mode is about how the name comes from the use of tools and implements. So it's all about the three-dimensional, tactile, tangible part of taking action. So initiating implementers need to physically construct and build with their hands. They bring something physical to life when they take action. The other end of the spectrum is more imagine and vision. Think of it almost like two-dimensional versus three-dimensional. An artist, look, artists create things. So we are all creative. And that's another, I could go for a whole hour just on this notion of creativity. Sometimes people think, well, it's only the initiating quick starts who are creative because they're risk takers. So they do things that seem out of the box and new, but you're creative too. I mean, with
mhm.
your three and quick start, it's just you do it differently than other people. With implementer, if you think of an artist who's an implementer, they're physically building, constructing, and the three-dimensional part is important. So maybe, you know, a sculptor. If they're a painter, their paintings have layers to them, like literally maybe the oil paint is thick and casts shadows, but also what they're depicting would have dimension and depth rather than perhaps a counteract or a 1, 2, or 3 in implementer where it would naturally, they don't need that physical component to it as much. So it might be more two-dimensional. Um, you know, they
Okay.
they could do it on a computer screen too. They don't need to physically build it with their hands. Like even the act of painting, even if it's a fundamentally two-dimensional, essentially medium, the act of painting is more physical than the act of using a computer to create art. So
Yeah.
the implementer people misunderstand more than the other three because of the name, and that's our fault. That's not their fault. But it again, just think physical, three-dimensional. That's
Wow.
implementer.
Okay, so the implementer one, this was the one I really wanted to talk to you about because when I read about the implementer in the book, I found it fascinating that it went on that continuum from number one, 1, 2, 3 being conceptual to the 7, 8, 8, 9, 10, 7, 8, 9, that end being the actual tactile, like you actually have to feel it and do it.
Yep.
So me personally, and I was trying to figure out how my implementer was a 3, so that means I'm more of a conceptual
Yep.
person. Most of my life, my mother taught me how to sew, and I love creating things with my hands, like or sewing. So I would sew stuffed animals for my kids. I'd make clothing. I would do purses. I would do practical things that would, that you could use that way. I could see them in my mind. I could take something apart and recreate it. So I guess that's where the implementer is coming in. But I also found joy in the creation of the physical thing. And yeah, I thought that was the one. And then I'll let you, the other was, it told me because I'm a 3, I shouldn't fix things and I don't take care of my stuff that much. That was the only thing I disagreed with because
Okay.
I do take care of my things. And as far as fixing things, yes, I will take things apart. I will put them back together. I will figure out why it's wrong. I have a coffee machine. I can tell the story of my leaking coffee machine and the silicone, and I still couldn't get the thing to stop leaking, but I took it apart. So
Did you put it back together?
I did put it back together. Oh, no,
I,
no, I
I,
do know
I
how to
know.
put it. Yeah, you see this room behind me?
Yeah.
My partner and I actually ripped out and gutted this room for the most part. And I put the wall together in the back there. I put the floor in. We painted. Ceiling was already here. So I love to create and do, remodel bathrooms and kitchens. That's me. I'm there. I can see the possibility in recreating that thing, but I also will get down and dirty and I'll rip that thing out and I'll put it in myself. So this was
Yeah.
the only one that was like, I was like, wow, this is a little off here. I could be both numbers.
So couple things. One, the margin of error on the assessment is we think of it as plus or minus 1. So if you're a
Okay.
3, That could be a 4. You're kind of right in that range. So maybe it's that accommodating where it's, and the accommodating implementer is more the repair rather than build from scratch. It's, hey, there's
Mm.
something here. I'll use my hands and do the physical part to repair those things. So that's more what I would think for that mid range. So maybe you're right there. Another part of it is, and you keep using the language around affect. You love it. You find
Oh,
joy in it.
okay.
And especially the story about your mom taught you to sew, so you like to sew. So some of that is just it's that emotional connection to it. So
Wow.
yes, you're using your hands, but my guess is it's especially on the things that your mom taught you. The doing the room is maybe separate, but on the stuff your mom taught you, that maybe is I love this because of what it represents and kind of the connection
Interesting.
that I feel to those things. And initiating, if you were, let's say an 8 in Implementer, you would really you would start the problem solving process almost with the physical parts of things. Even with some of the language you used around the physical things that you do was around figuring it out. Like
Yeah.
the coffee maker, I heard some fact finder language, like, I'm going to research this. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to go online. I'm going to watch some videos, and then you're going to do it. But it's more, some of it's almost that challenge.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I'll say is there's a part of us when we frankly want to shut off our conative working. We're not really striving. We're just doing something almost mindlessly. And for a lot of people, they kind of they'll almost go opposite when they do that, when it's that recharge mode. So for me with the physical, because I'm a 2 in Implementer, so I am not a physically build, construct, action taker. When I'm striving and doing my best, it's not about, I'm going to build something. It's more, I'm going to think about stuff, conceptualize, write about something, talk about something. But for me, one of those recreation things, recreation downtime things is I like to work in the yard. But so I'm planting, maybe it's a vegetable garden. Some years I do it, some years I don't. But okay, let's not guilt me for those years I don't do it. But I'm not striving. I'm kind of turning my brain off when I do those things, or I'm thinking about other stuff while I'm doing those physical things. So I don't know.
I,
That's a longer description of it.
oh no, that's a, yeah. What something you said was you're thinking of other things while you're working in the yard or working in the garden. I do that as well. I'll go out and run, and I will find that the act of running and doing there, my brain will just go somewhere else, and
Yeah.
you're just thinking through things, solving problems, putting pieces together, that type of stuff. So we talked about the 4 action modes that people, and we talked a lot about those. So I had an interesting question that what would be your advice or small steps to someone who perhaps they're struggling with finding fulfillment in the career they've chosen or the life that they have. They take the Kolbe Index, they get the results, and then they find out, oh, maybe what I'm doing isn't really in alignment, and they relate. They can look at that Kolbe result and go, wow, yeah, I can see myself in there, but now I'm somewhere that's not in alignment.
Right.
So let's talk about small steps and how this
Yeah.
can
I mean,
help them.
the first small step I would suggest is look, before blowing it all up and changing everything, maybe you're in a role where, okay, it's not well aligned with your conative strengths. What can you change about the role rather than, again, blowing it up and starting from scratch or something? And look, if you hate it that much, okay, fine, blow it up. And if this is the catalyst to get you to do it, fine. But for most people, it's about those incremental changes. So let's take with me the follow through. That's an area where, look, my strength is being open-ended and adaptable, but that doesn't align with situations where it is all about closure and following systems and patterns and routines. So if I'm in a position where that's the bulk of the job, that's what's expected of me, that's what people are asking me to do, what can I tweak, to use language you used before, about the role so that it fits me better? Are there
Mm.
things I cannot do? Again, look, the outcome is probably not negotiable, like especially at work. You don't go to your boss and say, hey, I know those sales quotas that everybody's judged by, just don't hold me to the same. No, they're not going to go for that.
Right.
The outcome, yes, you have to achieve the outcome, but do you have some freedom in terms of the way you go about achieving that outcome? And we usually have more freedom than we think. And if you think about bosses and in the workplace, most of the time they care about results.
Yeah.
So, if you can show someone, start small. Hey, I did this project, and full disclosure, now that it's done and you like the result, I didn't do the process that you laid out for it. I did it like this instead. Can I have your permission to do the next, kind of start the next
Mm.
project that way? So that's what I'd say is the first small step is what can you change to make that current situation align better with what works for you?
Oh, wow. Yeah. In what you were talking about, I could see myself in there. I had a job one time where, and this kind of goes back to like bosses and leaders and stuff where they're putting expectation. I guess, let me pause a minute. This is where the Kolbe test could be very valuable to employees and employers and leaders, because if you understand how somebody operates, then you can allow them to operate their best. And me personally, I had a boss that tried to micromanage everything that I did, and that's not who I am. I think
Yeah.
outside of the box when I do things, and I'm more of, okay, tell me what needs to get done. Just don't tell me how to do it, but I'll get it done for you. But I love how you phrased it, because it was a way in that we can help others understand how we take action on things by being
Yeah.
gentle and approaching it from an inquisitive, informative angle rather than a, hey, I do it this way and you got to let me do it this way perspective. So,
Right. Well, and the real world just doesn't work like that. It would be wonderful if
really,
we could do that. Yeah.
I would love that too.
Yeah.
I'm
I
going to
would
walk
love to
around with my
tell.
index on my,
Yeah.
hey, here's my index. This is how you treat me.
I'd love to tell the IRS, I don't bring everything to closure, so don't expect me to send my taxes in this year. But
Yeah, it'd be
no,
great.
it's not how it works.
I don't want to meet that quota this month, but
Yeah.
it's not a problem. Oh my gosh. In your book, actually, this kind of rolls into, because I'd love to know your thoughts on people who are somewhat of a chameleon. And I would put myself in that category where I'll do I'll try anything, even though my Colby kind of says I'm not, like I like stability, and I'm not really necessarily a risk person per se. So in the book, it mentioned that some people live with the philosophy, quote, you can do anything that you put your mind to. I would put myself in that category. Of course, now after I read the book, now I take myself out of that category. But
Well, hold on. That's the test.
okay,
Let's talk
okay,
about it.
okay. Well, I'm jumping to conclusions there. So the philosophy is you can do anything you put your mind to. So I want you to talk about the advantages and dangers of adopting or having that philosophy. And just because you can do something doesn't mean you should.
Right. And that's, I think, the key part is that last thing. So, look, I love challenges. I love challenging myself. I love challenging other people. I'm inspired by and want to be around folks like you who have the attitude of if I put my mind to it, I can accomplish something. So that's a great place to start. The problem, I think, is that people go too far with it, and they develop this value system sometimes around, oh, that means I really shouldn't do things in a way that's natural for me. That's cheating. That's the easy way out.
Mm.
The way I like to think of it is life's hard enough. And if you want to accomplish truly great, amazing things, that is a difficult goal in and of itself. You should set yourself up for success. I'm a huge believer in so many different realms. Put yourself in a position where you have made it more likely you will succeed and achieve the things that you care about. So you get to define what that looks like and how we define success. If you put yourself in a situation where it's hard to achieve that, what's the point? So if I can do anything I set my mind to. So, sports are sometimes a good analogy. I know they can be overdone, but I do go back to it sometimes. If you think about an athlete who's training to win a race, oh, I can do anything I set my mind to. Again, great place to start because it's going to be hard. You want to be a world champion. That is really tough stuff. If you naturally have the physical components to be a distance runner versus a sprinter, should you look at it and say, yeah, but that's the easy way out. I'm going to be the world champion sprinter.
Mm.
Okay, maybe you can. but maybe, you've made it so much more difficult for yourself to achieve the goal, which is being essentially world champion. So, yeah, why not run a marathon? Because of, again, and we can describe what it means, but there are actual things, a body build, the different muscular structure that will determine that. So that's kind of the analogy. Same thing in other walks of life. If there's something that is more natural for you, use that to achieve the things you care about. Don't fight against it. So for the two of us, do research, ask a lot of questions, seek out people who've already done stuff in this area and learn from them rather than doing it all from scratch. Don't listen to the people who say, oh, will you just move on? Just like stop asking questions and doing research. Just take action now. Like, okay, at some point we need to take action, but
Yeah.
we are taking action by doing the investigation. So that's what we mean by sure, you can do anything, but you don't do yourself a favor if that's what you're pursuing rather than the actual objective. Like it's just the challenge and making it hard on yourself. Don't do that.
Yeah. Wow. So I love that you said that instead of, like if you are built to be a distance runner versus a sprinter because they're two different body types, why try and put yourself into a round hole if you're a square peg,
Right.
for lack of a better term. But
Yeah.
I
And
think,
tell yourself, yeah, but I
but
can.
I
I'll
can't,
just
but yeah.
pound harder.
Yeah, no. Why? Why? What the beauty of what you're talking about is first the awareness, because I feel like me personally in my life, I wasn't even aware that if I'm trying to put myself into like I want to do that thing, but I never asked myself, is that natural for me to go do that thing? Am I just
Right.
making my life harder by going to lean into something that's not going to be that natural for myself? And as I investigated more and looked at my results and prepared for this conversation, I thought, wow, I could have said no to things and made my life a little bit easier and said yes to other things that would have played into my strengths that would have been in a different. Now, I'm not going to, I don't regret anything, but I'm just saying now I can go forward making more informed choices
Right.
about what it is that I'm going to lean into. And
Yeah.
the other thing you were talking about, us being fact finders, definitely I'm a fact finder. And you're right. I will do research, research, research. And sometimes I will change something out of the blue, but I did research behind the scenes even before I did it. Example from my own life last year, I worked as a financial advisor for a number of years but I secretly wanted to be a COO, CEO. I wanted to help run a small business and I wanted to go do that. So I started researching small businesses, how to build them, how to scale them, how to do all this. I spent 6 months studying them. And out of the blue last year in May, I got offered an opportunity to go run a small business. So what looked like a 180-degree opposite turn to my outside family and friends, they're like, wow, you're nuts. But I'm like, no, I actually had been thinking and manifesting this for almost a year. So that's where, and I didn't realize or see that until I took this test. And I realized, wait a minute, I've been fact finding this stuff
Right.
for a while, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool when you start looking at this test and you're just you just see
Yeah.
yourself in it. So the Kolbe test, the Kolbe, I keep saying test, I shouldn't.
No,
Kolbe
it's
Index.
fine. You
I,
can say test. It's all right.
I used to be a teacher. I was a math teacher, so everything was a test. You took something, it was an assessment, it was a test.
Yeah.
But anyway, one of the thing, I lost my question. Now I know where it was. So I know there are many corporations and businesses that use the Kolbe A to help leaders and help the employers, help the employees to be able to develop better teams. And I know the book goes into that as well, where they were used, how everybody can all work together well. I would love to dive into a little bit on the relationships. So if you
Sure.
find people, and you talked about you and your wife and how I would imagine there was this, I don't remember her number, or I know your number. I don't remember her number, but also me and my partner, he also took the Kolbe A Index. So it was fascinating to see the results. I'm like, oh wow, I see you in that. So talk about how, like there's people who are very close in their numbers, and then there are people who have wide ranges. So I'll let you take that conversation where you'd like it to go.
Sure. I'll start with kind of our philosophy. So, our philosophy on this is we don't tell couples, here's the formula for who you should look for in terms of a Kolbe result. The main reason for that is there's so much more that goes into picking a
Sure.
partner, a romantic partner, or even a friend for that matter. But let's just talk romantic partners for now. There's so much more that goes into it. It'd be really foolish to say, well, it has to fit this mold for what Kolbe says. It's really more what you are looking for. So that's a part of it. If you're looking for something in particular, okay, great, go for that. But the most important part is really getting back to what I talked about before. We help people understand who they are. It's not good or bad. It just is. So in a relationship, we really would prefer to start with an existing relationship, even if it's brand new. But, we're not about the matchmaking so much, although there are applications for that. But no, we don't have a dating site. I don't mean that. But I really want to help couples understand the first thing you need to do is not just tolerate your partner's differences, but be so thankful and appreciative where there are those differences that I'm going to be really honest, they can lead to tension and stress between two people. But they also are great because where you're different, you complement one another. So I mentioned my wife and I are very different in the follow through, the systems and structures. She creates systems and structures. I find shortcuts around them. Well, there's a time and a place for both. We have 4 kids. So when my kids and the youngest are now not living at home anymore, they're off in college. But when they were home, it was a little bit easier for me because the kids would mess up the systems and structures, and I was smart enough to wait them out most of the time. And then I could be a little bit of the hero of, oh, the system and structure has broken down. I'll step in when, it seems a bit chaotic, and that's more natural for me rather than kind of go to my wife and say, okay, it's time for you to impose systems and structure again, because that just can get really frustrating and tiring. But we appreciate that difference with one another. So, as I mentioned, yes, it can create stress and tension. So, this is what we see in relationships a lot. Two people are different. And when they don't know about this whole, like you talked about, you didn't know conation, and not many people do. I mean, that's one of the things we're on a mission to change is we want people just to understand it's out there and what it is so that their lives will be easier, whether they take a Kolbe index or not. I just want them to know about this part of the mind. But with couples, they don't know that there's this thing out there, and they start to it's not just that they're different. It's not, they judge each other about it. So if my wife, and we've talked about this and used the language, and so I'm not putting words in her mouth. If my wife didn't understand that this follow through part of me that is open-ended, adaptable, doesn't drive things to closure, if she didn't understand that's part of who I am, she would really kind of resent me for it. She would take it as, you don't care enough to do these things, because to her, they come naturally. So if you're
Right.
not doing them, which seems natural to do, there must be another reason that you're not doing them. You're trying to piss me off.
Yeah.
You're trying to, or you just don't care that it annoys me. But because she understands this is part of who I am. Now, here's the thing. So it makes it easier. Let me finish that thought. For her, it's not a cop out for me. So these things are important to my wife. And just again, living in the real world, I mentioned the IRS example. And it doesn't have to be that dramatic. It can just be things to do around the house. You know, if I start a project and I don't finish it, if it's out in the yard, that's fine because she doesn't care so much about that. If it's in the kitchen, but I'm the cook, I don't want to be too gender stereotyped about these roles, but it should just be inside. Like, let's say it's in our bedroom. That's She's there. She cares about how the bedroom is functioning and operating. I don't leave projects unfinished in the bedroom or the kitchen because those are areas she cares about. Outside is not her realm as much. So she'll kind of laugh about the outside ones, but she will get annoyed, even if she knows this is David. It's not a cop out for me. I don't just get to say, well, I'm a 2 and follow through. So all
Yeah.
these
So you
things
gotta
are
live with my mess that's all over the bed. You're
right.
all over the
Yeah,
bedroom.
no,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
I,
I
uh,
don't get to
I,
say
I,
that.
you know what though? I'm glad you bring that up though, because it it helps people understand that you are different and you do think differently and that it's okay, but we all have the capacity to figure out a compromise,
Right.
and that there's an opportunity to have a conversation that, oh, okay, so bringing, a little bit of chaos in the kitchen is okay, but how can we make it so that
Right.
what I see is normal chaos to me, what's chaos to you, how can we come to an understanding,
Yeah.
or maybe it's just, hey, I'm going to clean it up. I might not do it as well as you do, but I'm going to try to the best of my
Right.
ability, and to find
Well,
that middle ground. And knowing these results, I would think help people have a more understanding conversation.
yeah, it's understanding conversation, but it's also you get further. So because we are different in this area, we take something that a lot of times is a tension point for couples and it's more positive. So the honey-do list. And again, this is a gender stereotypical thing. Oh, the wife tells the husband, here's what you have to do. And the husband is all put out that,
Mhm.
oh, I've got this stuff I have to do before I get to, do the stuff I really want to do, hanging out with friends or whatever, watch football. We have a different approach to that. I really appreciate that she plans and has a structure. So I will actually ask her, like, hey, there's a bunch of stuff that I want, like for different reasons again. So the want is more the affect. And sometimes it's, hey, these things need to get done around the house. Like something's broken, it needs to get fixed. I don't want to waste money on something that isn't fixed. The air conditioner doesn't need to be a big deal. The filters need changing and they need changing on a consistent basis. I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Instead of me thinking it as she came up with a honeydew list, I will ask her, will you help? Let's work together and make a plan.
Mhm.
What are the things that need to be done? What's the timing, the sequence? That's not natural for me. It just isn't. And it makes it so much easier for me to do the things that need to get done. And then also she can kick, and we do this together. So it's not like she's tricking me. I'm asking for it with my quick start, deadlines and competition. That's a natural thing for me. So if it's, hey, here's the plan and all the things that need to get done, I'm more of a binger on that stuff. It's like, okay, go. You've got 4 hours. How many of these things can you get done, honey? And it's not her being annoying, it's her helping me out. But the key thing is the attitude, honestly. So yes, the
Sure.
understanding of we're different and we have these different roles to play. But so many couples I see develop an attitude, even if it does help them, and society is almost asking them, like with the honeydew list, that's the reason I use this example. Society's almost saying, come on, develop this attitude because people will pat you on the back for, oh, yeah, I get it. Your wife is making you do all this stuff. That's nonsense. Throw that out,
Yeah.
change the attitude, and your life will be better.
Yeah. And learn to work in your strengths. I mean, that's,
Right.
so what's your advice? So my partner and I, when we took it, our numbers are almost identical. We're both fact finders with an 8. We're both follow through. We have a follow through of 6. Oh no, his fact finder was 7, but I have to tell you,
Close enough.
it's close enough, and he asks a ton of questions for clarification. So I would say both of us are the same as far can we both do it the same way.
Yeah, you
The
both initiate in Fact Finder. Yep.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. We will definitely ask questions, ask questions, ask questions, and I can see that neither one of us will move until we've asked all of our questions. So the quick start for both of us is 3, so it makes perfect sense. So we're lining up here. The follow through was 6 for both of us, and then the last one was the implementer, and he's a 4, I'm a 3, but I would say I'm a 4 sometimes too. So we are almost
Yep.
identical.
Yeah.
There's got to be some pros and cons to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's start with the pros. What we see over and over again is that people who are more aligned, like the two of you, because you naturally do things in similar ways, there's less inherent kind of stress and tension around those differences. And that's it. So it's just easier a lot of times because there's a more natural flow and you do things in such a similar way in terms of taking action. Again, your interests and desires and preferences could still be radically
Oh,
different.
sure.
Your personalities, extrovert versus introvert, that's all different. But just sticking to the conative, I think the potential downside is because you're so similar, who complements you? If there's something where you really do need that other. So I described with me and my wife, because we're different, we cover two different bases in follow through. Well, you guys are so similar. There might be times when, well, who's going to do that thing that needs to get done? Because it really demands. So, well, let's just say in Fact Finder, since both of you are asking questions, getting information, digging into the details, you both do that and do that more and do that more. And who's there to say, stop, enough,
Yeah.
let's just book that trip rather than going and finding six more hotel
That
options.
will be me. That will be me to go and book the trip. And that was the other thing. Like sometimes I struggle with analysis paralysis. It's
Yep.
like, oh wait, just go do that thing.
Yeah.
Just finally we're at the point where it's like we have overanalyzed this enough. That would be me. I would go book the trip. That's fine. I'd go take like, yeah, let's do that. So at some
Yep.
point I will fact find enough where I can close the loop and say, okay, I'll go into let's go get that thing done. So it seems like a contradiction to my quick start almost, but somebody's got to do something. It's like you got to move forward.
Right.
And so at some point it's like, I want to move forward. So now you got to go make the plans.
Yeah. Well, and there are all kinds of techniques. A
Sure.
Kolbe result isn't what you can or can't do. So sure,
Okay.
you can simplify and bottom line things, even though naturally you need to ask questions and get more information. So, that's kind of the advice is make sure you give yourself the time and space to ask questions, but yes, have the discipline. And maybe it's just kick in the cognitive part of your mind. Hey, we want to go on a trip. At some point, we got to book the plane tickets and the
Mm,
hotels. And you just know, like, it has to be done.
yeah.
You give yourself a deadline,
Yeah.
there are
Oh,
different little, and they don't have to be big techniques. It's
I
just,
love doing that stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, give me the trip. Tell me where to
but
go and I will book it. But part of my which came up with my results is I will micromanage it down to like I know where I am this day. I know what time the flight comes in. I'm going to set up the transportation to get to the hotel to do all that. So like I will micromanage and make sure that there's no chaos in that trip
yeah,
that we're going to take.
yeah.
So this is a lot of fun. I love this stuff. I'm probably a self-imposed, or what did I call it? Test taking junk, or not test taking. What did I call it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
assessment
Yeah,
junkie.
yeah, assessment junkie. I would love to know. We talked about success before. I would love to know what your definition of success is.
To me, it's two things. It's first having the freedom to be yourself, and then it's actually going out and doing it.
Mm.
So it's funny you asked the question because my mom, so Kathy Kolbe, who, as we talked about, started the Index and started the company that I run now. Her definition of success was the freedom to be yourself. And I agree with that. But to me, true success does take it to the next step. Because if you have the freedom, but you don't do anything with it, I think you're still kind of falling short.
Mm.
But, and the reason that kind of we both just almost starting with the freedom to be yourself is we all know people who have achieved a lot and they have high status and maybe high money, but they don't feel free. And if you are with those people, whether you know them well to start or whether you just spend time with them, they're not successful. And other people think they are, but if you get into their brain, there is regret, there is sadness, there's a lack of fulfillment. And when you change it, so you were kind of talking about you wanted to do something else. Now, I don't know, maybe you were free to do the things, you loved doing what you had been doing, but it was just time to move on to something else. But if you think about the people where they don't have that freedom to move into that thing that they want to do, there's something lacking there.
Yeah. Yeah. The small steps is just, I appreciated what you said before about if you're somewhere you really don't want to be, there are small steps that you can take to start leaning into once you realize what your conative abilities are and how you take action on that and how you can apply it to your current situation. So really nobody is stuck, nobody is stuck where they are. It's just recognizing, bringing that awareness and then leaning into that. What's something that very few people agree with you on?
I, oh gosh, I don't know.
I was just
I
curious.
really like the smell of secondhand cigar smoke. That's pretty niche, but it's true. I think Steph Curry is the most consequential basketball player of modern times. Forget the LeBron versus Michael Jordan. Steph Curry changed the way the game is played for better or worse. I'm a basketball fan, so a lot of people can't stand that it's so much three-point shooting, but it's more than just him, but he fundamentally changed it. So I don't know.
Gosh, I do love asking this question. What's one thing you thought would be hard about developing the Kolbe A Index, interpreting the results? Turned out it really wasn't. And flip it? What's one thing that you thought would be easy about doing that, or the research that you were into, but really wound up being more challenging for you?
Something that I thought would be hard about interpreting Colby results that isn't is it's scary when you talk to people the first time. There's a particular result that we call a transition result, which is where we call it transition because usually they're in a period of transition. So, new job, new marriage, they just had kids for the first time or something. But basically what it means is we don't know your actual Colby results. It's a temporary thing. It's usually transitory, but it kind of can make someone feel like, well, I failed the test. And again, we like to think of it as an assessment. There's no better or worse, but gosh, this might be the exception. It's kind of scary to do that. And I thought it would be really hard, but it turns out it's way easier because those people tend to feel we're describing something that's true and they have felt it in such a way that it's a relief for them. It's like, oh my gosh, you didn't ask me any question on, the test that seemed like it was getting at this. And yet you're telling me there's a reason for this feeling, this struggle that I'm kind of having, and it's okay. Like I'm not messed up because of it. It's just this thing and it'll change. So yeah, it seemed like it would be hard to do those, but because we're really tapping into something, it's actually my favorite kind of interpretation to do because there's such a weight that's lifted off for people most of the time. I think the flip side of that, the thing that I thought would be easy that's hard, is convincing people that all Colby results are positive. Sometimes it's, maybe arrogant people think mine is the best and you can tell me that the other ones are just as good, but I don't believe it. And sometimes they'll just tell you that.
Yeah.
But it's also in the sadder one is when it's people themselves, like, and it tends to be the counteract. So the lower numbers, the 1, 2s, and 3s in a mode, people think of that as a weakness. I don't care which of the 4 modes, so with your quick start, you have a 3 in quick start. So a lot of times people will think, I'm not as exciting as other people, or I'm not as much of an innovator as other people. Well, no, you don't experiment and take risks as often. You stabilize.
Yeah,
But that
I can see that.
it's so important. It's such a strength to be able to do that and listen to it and contribute that to your life and to the projects that you're working on with other people. But it's hard to get that
Yeah.
drilled into people's minds because we're so used to thinking about what I don't do as a weakness as opposed to focusing on, but what do I do with this?
Right.
And how is it helpful?
Yeah, and that goes back to what we were talking about before. It's like, yeah, we can do a lot of different things, but should we do those things? Is it a strength or is it a
Yeah.
weakness? And that was one thing when I took the Kolbe A and I looked at my results through what was printed out. Now, I didn't dig a lot deeper because there is a lot of information I could dig into on the website after the results came out and everything. What really helped me was the book. Because then as I was looking, I printed out my results. As I was looking at my results, I was reading the book at the same time. And it just unpacked more and went deeper into my results. But then there were also different, I'm looking at I forget in the table of contents you talked about, there is like one of the chapters, the name is Good Advice Gone Bad, where we're being told things that, wait a minute, do say things to us meaning well, but it's really not. And when we put it up against the results, then the results seem to make more sense to us
Yeah.
too, And so I really, I would just encourage anybody who's listening. I'm gonna put my plug in. If when you take the Kolbe A and you want to go deeper and do more, just buy a copy of the book too. And you have so much more stuff on there as well. There's relationship stuff in there people can dive into, and then
Yeah.
there's more, like there is just more things that we don't even really have time to get into, but there is so do you
Yeah.
anything you want to add?
A tiny plug because I
Yes.
actually love it. The relationship stuff, you can go to takes2, TWO.com, and that has so two people can take their Kolbe indexes, and then the Takes Two report talks about in a personal relationship
Oh,
context how how does knowing this stuff help our relationship, and it gives advice around how to, you know, the relationship is what it is, so it's not
yes.
swapping somebody out, but how do you understand the dynamics and interplay with those
Yeah.
two
Oh,
results?
that's cool. I think, well, even though we each have individual Kolbe A results, I might go back and take that too,
Well,
which,
yeah, and you don't need to take anything. Once you both have your results, you just say, "Hey, here are my results. I'd
oh,
love to get the takes two analysis,"
oh,
basically.
okay. Oh, that's good to know. Yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah,
And the other thing too, and I just want to reiterate on that, you mentioned it in the beginning, was that our Kolbe A results is usually it's the thing that doesn't really change over time, except if you're going through something that's extreme. Me, the overachiever in myself I took it the first time and I'm like, well, I just want to take this again just to see if I get the same result. Now you close that loop for me, David. I don't have to go back and take it
yes.
again.
No, don't. We don't need you to take extra time and spend extra money. Just stick with that first one.
I've done that before. I'll take the Myers-Briggs twice. I did a habit finder assessment. I took that twice. I'm like, I didn't trust those first results.
Yeah,
But the problem is you can skew them after a while. Well, if you take enough tests, like I've taken a ton of them. And since I'm so analytical, I can actually follow where the questions are going, and then I can
right,
actually manipulate the results, which kind of stinks because I don't want to do that because you want accurate results. So I have to
right.
kind of fight that part of whatever my brain is going on there to want to to want to do that.
Yeah, very true.
Oh my gosh, this has been an awesome conversation. We do have to come to a close at some point. So I love to ask my guests, all my guests, I ask the same question. As we close, what is one small step that someone can do today that's going to help them change their tomorrow?
Just figure out a way to learn more about yourself. Look, sure, you can take a Kolbe index, but you don't have to do that. Just think about when I am, we talk about flow state. When I'm in a flow state, when that's happened to me, what does that feel like? How am I taking action? And then find ways to get in those situations more and more often. It doesn't have to be, it's never going to be 100% of the time, but just a little more often. And then you can build on that and it'll snowball.
David, thank you. I am so appreciative of your time. How can my guests find you and reach out?
Easiest way is to just go to Kolbe, KOLBE.com, and you can find all about the company and me and communicate with us there.
Well, David, thank you so much for the gift of your time. I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
Thanks, Sue. It's been great to be here.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I value your time with me and I seek to make every moment count. In order to make lasting change in your life, listening is usually not enough. So I want to ask you, what practical steps are you going to put into action today as a result of listening to this podcast? Remember, any step, any action, no matter how small, starts your journey to a big win. And if you're not sure where to get started, reach out to me and let's have a conversation. Until next time, love yourself, then love others. Peace.